Hello, welcome. Let's talk about comparing and ordering integers. We know that integers are those whole numbers, those pretty big whole numbers, and their opposites. So we're only dealing with whole numbers and their negatives, no fractions or decimals today. Here's a problem. Peter lives in Hiram. It got to -4 degrees last winter. Tyler is not far away. He's in Nibley, but it got to -7 degrees. They both say where they lived it was the coldest. Who is correct? Well, if we put both of these on a number line, it's going to be Tyler. Why? Because here's -4 degrees. Here is -7 degrees. -7 degrees is actually colder than -4 degrees. If we're talking about temperature, the further to the left we get, or the further down we get, the further away from zero we get, the more cold it is. The more negative it is, the colder it is. So that's your first example of comparing integers. And when we get into negatives, it's kind of going to blow your mind. We got to think the opposite of what we've learned about positive numbers. So as we look at this number line, what are some things I want you to notice? Well, I want you to notice that going to the right, our numbers get bigger. Going to the left, our numbers get smaller. Anything left of zero is negative. The further away you get from zero, the smaller the number actually is. So like this -11 is actually more negative than the -4. It's further away. It's a smaller amount. The negative number that's closest to zero then is the bigger number. The closer to zero you get in the negatives, the bigger the number is. Okay? Do you notice it's like that mirror image? Like zero is the mirror, and they are looking at each other. The opposites are looking directly at each other. They're the equal distance away from zero. So, biggest thing, the biggest takeaway from this discussion is this. And this is what I want you to put in your notes. If you go to the right, you get bigger. You are more positive, more bigger. Okay? As you go to the left, you're getting smaller. You are more negative. So put that in your notes. That's something you got to get your mind wrapped around, is the further you get away from zero on the left, the smaller it actually is. Okay, yes, you might have a bigger number, but that's a bigger negative. The bigger negatives are actually smaller amounts. They're more small than these smaller numbers that are also negatives. Okay, so -11 is the smallest number on this number line for a couple reasons. Okay, it's the furthest away from zero. It's also the most to the left. Whereas this 11 is the biggest number because it's the furthest to the right. So we're going to practice kind of that concept, that math mindset, in the next few slides. Okay, so this is also in your notes. If we were to plot 5, which is right here, and -9, which is right here, and we think, oh, right, to the right is bigger, to the left is smaller, then we can say, well, -5 is to the right of -9 on the number line. So that means that 5 is greater than -9. Okay? Anything to the right is bigger. Anything to the left is smaller. Another way you could look at it is, well, 5 is positive. -9 is negative. The positive will always be greater than the negative, because the positives are always to the right of the negatives that are to the left of zero. Okay, now this next one, -2 and 0. -2 is here and 0 is here. Now, for so long in our elementary school year, we've been taught that, or we've been thinking that, oh, 0, that's the smallest we can get. Not anymore. Now that we have negatives, because -2 is to the left of 0, that means the -2 is actually smaller than 0 because it's to the left. So finally, 0 gets to win some competitions. It's no longer going to be the smallest number. Okay, it's going to be greater than any negative number. It will still be less than any positive number, but at least it can win those battles against any of the negative numbers. Cool, huh? Yay for 0! So, what if we have 3 numbers? How do we compare those? Well, let's first notice that this is it looks like an L, doesn't it? So it's the less than symbol. So we want the smallest on the left. So if we can think of, or if you can look at your number line in your notes, which one, if we're looking for the smallest, which one is then the biggest negative? Because the biggest negative is actually the smallest number. And we have 2 negatives. We have -3 and -7. Well, -7 is the biggest negative, isn't it? It's the furthest away from 0 on the number line. So -7 is the smallest number. Followed by -3, because that's also negative, but it's to the right of -7, isn't it? But it is closer to 0 than -7 is. So that is the next biggest. The biggest by far, because it is a positive, is the number 4. Anything positive is going to be bigger than anything negative. Cool, huh? So what if we want to now go greatest to least? Which of these is the biggest? We have a -1, a -4, and a +2. And if we now want to go greatest to least, we need to start on the right of our number line and work down, because the furthest to the right will be the biggest number. The furthest to the right for these 3 numbers is 2. It's on the right of 0 even. The other ones are on the left of 0, so they're definitely smaller. So 2 is the greatest. And then as we go down a number line, we're going to hit 1, 0, then we'll hit -1, won't we? So -1 will be the next greatest. And as we keep going to the left, as we keep getting smaller, we're going to hit -4. So those are your numbers from greatest to least. What if we have a number line, a temperature number line, and we want to plot these cities? Where would they go? Let's do it. If you want to pause and do it without me and then see if you did it correct, or you can do it with me. I'm going to start with Anchorage. Anchorage is at -17 degrees. So here's 0. I'm going to keep going down until past -10. That's probably -15. So I'm going to go right about there. I'm going to label that Anchorage. Okay. Boise, Idaho is +7, so I'm going to be above 0. I'm going to find 7 and label that Boise. Duluth is that -25 degrees that we talked about yesterday. -25 degrees. Whew. It's going to be right there. Wow, Minnesota's colder than Alaska. Los Angeles is very warm. It's going to be in the positives. It's going to be up into the 35 degrees. So let's go LA for short, Los Angeles. Tennessee is also positive. It's going to be at 18. Memphis, Tennessee. And then Pittsburgh is also pretty cold. It's negatives, -5. So I need to go below 0, right, to get into the negatives. And I'm going to put it right there. So now I can answer a bunch of questions about these cities. The first question is, what city had the colder temperature? Memphis or, oh, I missed it. Memphis or Pittsburgh? Well, the colder temperature will be lower down, right? So Memphis or Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh is further down. Pittsburgh is below 0. It's in the negatives. It is definitely colder, isn't it? Which one is the warmest? Well, which one is the furthest up? That's Los Angeles. Which one is the coldest? Go all the way down, as far away from 0 as you can get, and you'll get to Duluth. So those are the answer to the questions in your notes. Okay, now for some quiz time. I am thinking of a negative integer that is greater than -6. What number could I be thinking of? Negative. So it has to be left of 0. But it can't be to the right of 0, right? Because then it would be positive. So it has to be a negative integer. So that means any number between 0 and -6, right? So it could be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And those are the negative numbers between -6 and 0. Okay? All right. Next question. Which number is less than 3? So less than means it's to the left, but greater than -2. Greater means it's to the right. So which of these numbers is less than 3? If you want to think of a number line, it's got to be less than 3, but greater than -2. Well, what's between 3 and -2? We have -1, we have 0, we have 1, and we have 2. What of those numbers fit in there? -1 fits in there. So that is the only number that's between 3 and -2. What? Oh, just kidding. What are these numbers ordered from least to greatest? Least to greatest. Go. -20 is the biggest negative, which means it is the smallest. Then we have another negative, and then the positive number is going to be the greatest out of all of them. All right, last question. Let's talk about golf again. Raheem, Aaron, and Blake played a game of miniature golf. The table below shows their scores. So Raheem got a 0, Aaron got -5, Blake got -1. At the end of the game, they wanted to know who won. Remember with golf, you want to get the least amount of hits to get your ball in the hole, right? So you want the lowest score. If that's true, then Aaron is the winner. Good job, Aaron. She is the furthest from 0. She has the lowest score. Now, all of these scores would beat me because I'm not very good at golf. I'm always tend to be in the positives when I'm playing any type of golf. Okay? All right, friends, now you know how to compare and order integers, positive and negative integers. See you next time.